have a mission that ventures into some incredibly dark and, frankly, terrifying psychological territory.
Yeah, it really is. It's heavy stuff today.
It is. We're working through a massive stack of sources, theatrical histories, dense literary analyses, historical records, and they're all dissecting one of the most infamous works ever put to paper.
William Shakespeare's Macbeth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let's set the ground rules right now. You likely already know the basic story. You know the ambitious general, the ruthless wife, the tragic fall.
Oh, wait, we are not here to give you a summary of a 400-year-old plot.
No, definitely not. Our goal today is to unpack the raw psychology of ambition, the physical manifestation of guilt, and exactly why this ancient play operates as a haunting mirror. A mirror reflecting the hidden darkness that lives inside, well, all of us.
It functions entirely as a mirror, and the reflection it offers is deeply uncomfortable. When we synthesize these literary analyses, what emerges isn't just a tragedy, it's a masterclass in human psychology, meticulously mapped out centuries before clinical psychology was even a recognized discipline. The text forces us to look at the actual mechanics of moral decay.
Which brings us to the hook. The atmospheric dread that surrounds this work before the curtain even rises. You probably heard of the curse in the theater world.
Oh, the Scottish play.
Yes, a literal, enduring superstition respected by actors, directors, stagehands globally. You do not say the name of this play inside a theater. You call it the Scottish play.
And people take it very seriously.
They really do. Our theatrical sources are filled with legends of disaster. We're talking falling counterweights, sudden fires, and even real daggers inexplicably finding their way onto the prop table.
Resulting in actual onstage casualties.
Right. So why is it cursed?
Well, the theatrical lore is expensive, but the superstition is actually born from the psychological weight of the text itself.
Oh.
Consider why this play, out of all 37 of Shakespeare's works, carries this dark aura. It's not about a supernatural demon or a delightfully wicked villain like Iago or Richard III, where you can comfortably watch them scheme from a distance.
Yeah, you can kind of separate yourself from them.
Exactly. The reason this play terrifies people, the reason it feels genuinely cursed, is because it forces us to watch a fundamentally good man actively choose to dismantle his own soul.
Ooh.
He knows his actions are evil, he fully grasps the cosmic consequences, he knows the blood won't wash off, and yet...
He steps over the moral line anyway.
He does.
That conscious choice is what makes it so chilling. So let's establish the baseline before the madness takes hold. We're looking at 11th century Scotland, and our historical sources paint a picture of a brutal, unforgiving, politically unstable landscape.
Very unstable.
The kingdom is tearing itself apart with internal rebellions and Norwegian invasions. King Duncan sits on the throne. He's a just, divinely appointed monarch, but militarily vulnerable. And the only thing standing between the kingdom and total annihilation is Macbeth. The literary critiques emphasize that he isn't introduced as a monster. He is the ultimate loyal warrior.
The bulwark of the nation.
Literally described as splitting traitors from navel to jaw to protect his king.
It's vital to recognize that heroic baseline. The tragedy doesn't function if he starts out corrupt.
Right.
He is the protector of the realm, and understanding his initial nobility is the only way to measure the sheer velocity of his impending fall.
Okay, let's unpack this. The inciting incident on the heath. Macbeth and his fellow commander Banquo are wading through the literal and metaphorical fog of war when they encounter the three witches, the Weird Sisters.
Yes.
And the witches chant a paradox that our literary sources highlight as the cipher for the entire narrative. Fair is foul, and foul is fair.
That chant is a rhetorical inversion, a chiasmus that perfectly anchors everything that follows. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. It signals a complete collapse of moral and natural order. The hero will become the monster. The honored guest will become the victim. What appears to be a beautiful golden promise of power is actually a devastating psychological trap.
Because the witches don't just greet him, they bombard him with prophecies.
Exactly. They hail him by his current title, Thane of Glamis. Then Thane of Cawdor, a title he doesn't yet know he has. Finally, they declare he will be king hereafter.
And they have something for Banquo, too.
They do. They offer Banquo a distinctly different fate. He won't wear the crown, but he will father a line of kings.
The psychological timing of this encounter is just incredible. Macbeth is standing there trying to process what sounds like absolute treasonous madness, since King Duncan is perfectly healthy. But almost instantly, royal messengers arrive. The current Thane of Cawdor has been executed for treason, and the king has transferred the title to Macbeth. Prophecy number 2 manifests in real time.
What's fascinating here is the core philosophical tension that erupts in Macbeth's mind. The literary debate in our sources centers heavily on this exact moment.
Did the witches implant Macbeth's dark ambition, or did they merely hold up a mirror to a desire that was already festering inside him?
Yeah, exactly. It is the ultimate collision of free will and predestination. Macbeth's initial thought is passive. If fate dictates I'll be king, perhaps fate will simply crown me without my interference.
Which is a comforting thought.
But the pivot happens terrifyingly fast. The fatalistic thought mutates. If fate has decreed this destination, maybe fate requires me to act as the brutal instrument to get there.
But he still hesitates, which shifts our focus to Lady Macbeth and the architecture of murder. Macbeth sends a letter ahead to his wife detailing the prophecies and the incredibly convenient fact that King Duncan will be staying at their castle that very night.
The timing is flawless.
It really is. And when you read the critical analyses of Lady Macbeth's reaction to this letter, it's staggering. There is zero moral wrestling. Her immediate concern isn't whether they should murder the king, but whether her husband has the ruthless capacity to actually do it.
She famously notes he is too full of the milk of human kindness.
Right. And then she delivers that terrifying soliloquy, calling on dark spirits to unsex her.
That specific word, unsex, is a total rejection of the natural order. In the Elizabethan framework, women were viewed as naturally compassionate, maternal, and nurturing. She is explicitly demanding that the metaphysical world strip away her biological and psychological humanity.
She wants to feel nothing.
She wants her empathy replaced with pure, unadulterated cruelty because she intuitively understands that human beings are neurologically wired to feel hesitation and pity. To commit regicide against a guest under her own roof, she has to preemptively murder her own conscience.
Contrast that proactive suppression with Macbeth's agonizing deliberation. He lists every logical, ethical, and spiritual reason to abandon the plot. He is Duncan's kinsman, his loyal subject, and his host.
He has every reason not to do it.
He explicitly tells himself that he should be barring the doors against murderers, not holding the knife. He even tries to call the whole thing off, telling his wife they will proceed no further in this business.
But Lady Macbeth doesn't accept the hesitation. Our psychological sources break down her response as a masterclass in targeted emotional manipulation.
It's brutal to read.
It is. She bypasses all of his logical and moral arguments and strikes directly at his ego and his identity. She equates his hesitation with cowardice and defines his masculinity entirely through his willingness to commit violence.
The imagery she uses to break him is absolutely visceral. She tells him that she knows the profound tenderness of nursing a child, but if she had sworn an oath to him the way he swore to take this crown,
she would smash her own baby's brains out.
Yes, rather than break her word. It's a staggering escalation. She weaponizes the concept of loyalty and completely shatters his resolve.
By framing empathy as weakness and ruthless ambition as the ultimate expression of manhood, she completely corners him. If he retreats, he is emasculated in the eyes of the one person whose validation he desperately craves.
So the moral dam breaks, leading us to the night of the murder. Lady Macbeth neutralizes the guards. Macbeth is alone in the dark, moving toward Duncan's chamber, and his psychological fracture begins before he even commits the crime.
The floating dagger.
Exactly. He hallucinates the infamous floating dagger, its handle pointing toward his hand, blood slowly appearing on the blade. He pushes through the sensory collapse, enters the room, and murders the king.
But it breaks him.
Instantly. The trauma of the act instantly shatters his executive function. He wanders back into the hall, carrying the bloody daggers, staring at his hands, and says, Macbeth does murder sleep.
The literary critics in our stack spend pages analyzing that single line. Murdering sleep is a profound metaphysical concept.
Yeah.
In Renaissance humoral theory, sleep was the ultimate restorative force, the balm of hurt minds. Macbeth realizes instantaneously that he hasn't just assassinated a political figure. He has permanently severed his own connection to peace. His conscience will literally never allow his brain to rest again. He looks at the blood on his hands and realizes that not even the entire ocean could wash it off. Instead, his hands would turn the green seas red. The guilt isn't just a feeling, it's an infinite cosmic stain.
And the contrast with Lady Macbeth in this immediate aftermath is stark. She is fiercely pragmatic, almost icy. She scolds his fragile state, snatches the bloody daggers, returns to the scene of the crime to frame the unconscious guards, and comes back with her own hands drenched in blood.
And she is completely unbothered.
Completely. And she delivers a line steeped in terrifying arrogance, A little water clears us of this deed. Think about how often human nature leans into that exact delusion.
Oh, all the time.
We make a catastrophic moral error and convince ourselves that a simple apology, a change of scenery, or a little time will just wash it away. We assume we can compartmentalize the damage.
It's the ultimate psychological miscalculation. She views guilt as a temporary physical inconvenience. She completely underestimates the psychosomatic power of a violated conscience, which, as the text reveals, will eventually demand its pound of flesh.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The shift in how the violence operates once the crown is secured. Morning arrives, the king is dead, Duncan's sons flee in panic.
Which conveniently makes him look guilty.
Right. And Macbeth ascends to the throne. He has the ultimate power, but he is completely paralyzed by paranoia. His mind fixates on the witch's second prophecy, the promise that Banquo's bloodline will ultimately rule.
The placeholder king.
Exactly. He realizes he has poisoned his own soul, damned himself to eternal torment, only to act as a placeholder for his friend's descendants. His solution: he calmly hires assassins to butcher Banquo and his young son.
The threshold of violence has shifted dramatically, and our sources highlight this as the definitive turning point in his psychopathy. Consider the sheer agony, the hallucinations, and the manipulation required to kill Duncan.
It took everything he had.
But murdering his closest friend and a child, that merely requires a bureaucratic conversation with some hitmen. He doesn't even consult Lady Macbeth. The moral agonizing is completely gone.
He has become ruthlessly efficient. But the psychological bill comes due at the royal banquet. Banquo is dead, though his son Fleance manages to escape. Macbeth is hosting the Scottish nobility, playing the benevolent king, when he looks at his designated seat.
And there it is.
Sitting there is Banquo's ghost, violently mutilated, staring at Macbeth with dead eyes. And the crucial detail is that only Macbeth sees the apparition. He suffers a massive screaming breakdown in front of the entire ruling class.
Right in front of everyone.
Lady Macbeth frantically tries to gaslight the lords, claiming it's just a childhood illness, but the facade is entirely shattered.
The ghost is the physical projection of his fracturing mind. He has violently disrupted the natural order, and now his own neurology is rebelling against him. He is publicly unraveling.
So what does he do?
Driven by this insatiable paranoia, he seeks out the witches again. It's almost like an addiction. He returns to the source of his poison, desperately seeking a cure, and the witches provide him with 3 new, heavily layered prophecies. Beware, Macduff. No man of woman born can harm him, and he will never be defeated until Birnam Wood, the physical forest, marches on his castle.
These prophecies feed him exactly the delusion he craves. He thinks he's mathematically invincible. Every man is born of a woman and trees don't walk.
He thinks he's safe.
But this false security strips away whatever tiny shred of humanity he had left. When he learns that Macduff has fled to England to join the resistance, Macbeth doesn't just seize his lands. He sends death squads to Macduff's castle to systematically slaughter his innocent wife, his children, and his servants.
Just horrifying.
There is no strategic political advantage to this. It is pure nihilistic terror. He is no longer a tragic hero making a flawed choice. He is a rabid tyrant lashing out at the world.
And while Macbeth externalizes his profound spiritual rot through escalating state violence, turning Scotland into a slaughterhouse, Lady Macbeth's trajectory is the exact opposite. Her collapse is entirely internal.
Which brings us to one of the most famous psychological depictions in literary history, Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking scene. The woman who prayed to be stripped of her pity, who confidently declared that a little water would wash away the murder, is now wandering the freezing stone halls at night, trapped in a somnambulistic nightmare.
She can't escape it.
She is obsessively, violently scrubbing her hands, trying to wash away imaginary blood that her mind continues to generate. She cries out, "Out, damn spot. Out, I say."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this scene is a staggering early depiction of what we now understand as psychosomatic illness and obsessive-compulsive trauma responses.
Found way ahead of its time.
Shakespeare shifts her dialogue from structured, poetic verse into disjointed, fragmented prose, mirroring the literal disintegration of her mind. The water she claimed would act as a cure is utterly useless against the metaphysical stain on her soul.
A doctor actually watches her do this.
Right? Yes, a doctor observes her and correctly notes that her disease is beyond his medical practice. She needs divine intervention, not medicine. Her suppressed humanity has returned with such violent force that it destroys her, culminating in her eventual off-screen death, which the historical analyses strongly read as suicide.
Macbeth's reaction to her death is perhaps the bleakest moment in the entire text. When he receives the news, he doesn't weep. He delivers the sketch. Tomorrow, and tomorrow's soliloquy.
One of the most famous speeches in the English language.
Truly. He reduces human existence to a walking shadow, a poor actor strutting briefly on a stage before disappearing. He concludes that life is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying absolutely nothing.
Many readers interpret that speech as a profound philosophical observation on mortality, but the literary critiques demand we view it through the lens of consequence. This crippling nihilism is Macbeth's self-inflicted punishment. By systematically murdering trust, loyalty, sleep, his friends, and his wife's sanity, he has eradicated every single element that gives human life meaning. He is left standing in the hollow, echoing void he created. The universe hasn't lost its meaning. He destroyed his ability to perceive it.
It is a terrifying realization. And simultaneously, the physical trap snaps shut. The resistance army, led by the rightful heir Malcolm and the grieving Macduff, advances on the castle.
Here comes the forest.
To obscure their numbers, the soldiers hack down the branches of Burnham Wood and hold them up as camouflage as they march. From Macbeth's vantage point on the battlements, the impossible is happening. The forest is moving. The witch's deceptive truth is revealed.
The linguistic trickery of the Weird Sisters comes full circle. They never lied to him, but they carefully constructed truths designed to incubate his arrogance and lead him to slaughter.
Even still, Macbeth clings desperately to the final prophecy. No man of woman born can kill him. He meets Macduff on the battlefield, practically mocking him with this invincibility clause. But Macduff shatters the illusion, revealing that he was untimely ripped from his mother's womb, a historical cesarean section.
He was not born in the natural biological sense the prophecy exploited.
Realizing he has been entirely played by the dark forces he trusted, Macbeth fights to the death. Macduff beheads him, Malcolm takes the throne, and the bleeding country is finally purged of the tyrant.
But the restoration of order comes at a staggering cost. To fully grasp the immense cultural weight of this narrative, we have to pull back and look at the masterclass context provided in our historical sources.
Right, because this didn't happen in a vacuum.
Not at all. Shakespeare wrote Macbeth around 1606. Just 1 year earlier, in 1605, England experienced its own massive trauma, the Gunpowder Plot.
Guy Fawkes and the attempt to blow up Parliament.
Exactly. A cell of conspirators planted explosives under the House of Lords, intending to assassinate King James I and the entire government. It was narrowly thwarted, but it sent absolute shockwaves of paranoia through the nation.
I can imagine.
The idea that ordinary citizens could conspire in the shadows to obliterate God's anointed king was deeply terrifying to Jacobean society. So, staging a play that meticulously explores the cosmic, psychological, and national horrors of regicide was an incredibly timely, politically charged move.
And Shakespeare was writing directly to his audience of one. King James I was from Scotland, and he was famously, almost dangerously, obsessed with the supernatural. He literally authored a treatise called Demonology, detailing the mechanics of witchcraft.
He took it very seriously.
Yes, and furthermore, James claimed direct genealogical descent from the real historical figure of Banquo. Our sources point out that Shakespeare, whose theater company was under the direct patronage of the king, wove all these specific elements together to reflect the deep anxieties of his monarch.
It was brilliant political maneuvering, certainly, but Shakespeare elevates it far beyond mere propaganda. He uses that political backdrop to launch a timeless exploration of human vulnerability.
So what does this all mean for us today, divorced from 17th century politics? Let's examine the theme of masculinity, which the sources highlight as a core tension. We discussed how Lady Macbeth equated true manhood with ruthless violence and the suppression of empathy.
Right.
But the play provides a brilliant, corrective counterargument through the character of Macduff. When Macduff is informed that his wife and children have been slaughtered by Macbeth's death squads, he is paralyzed by grief. Another nobleman tells him to dispute it like a man, essentially telling him to repress his trauma and channel it instantly into violent revenge.
A very toxic expectation.
Exactly. And Macduff's response is revolutionary. He says, "I shall do so, but I must also feel it as a man."
It is a profound redefinition of human strength. True masculinity, and indeed true humanity, does not require the amputation of your emotional core. It demands the courage to fully experience devastating pain and profound grief without allowing it to destroy your moral compass.
Macduff refuses to surrender his humanity to the trauma.
Which stands in brilliant, stark contrast to both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, who destroyed themselves trying to outrun their vulnerabilities.
Which brings us to the core reason this story endures. The reason the theater world treats it as a cursed or volatile object isn't just superstition. It's because Macbeth isn't an otherworldly demon or a sociopath from birth. He is an ordinary, capable person who failed a colossal test of temptation.
This raises an important question. The play forces the audience to sit in severe discomfort and interrogate their own moral architecture. If you were guaranteed the one thing you secretly desire most in this world and the path to secure it was laid out perfectly in front of you, and you were convinced, even for a fleeting moment, that there would be absolutely no earthly consequences, would you genuinely possess the fortitude to walk away?
It is comforting to immediately say yes.
It is, but the text rigorously argues that unchecked ambition is a dormant virus in all of us, waiting for the right conditions to replicate.
It remains the ultimate psychological cautionary tale. The sources prove that when ambition divorces itself from morality, it becomes a corrosive acid that destroys the very kingdom the ambitious person sought to rule. It twists loyal protectors into paranoid tyrants and proves that some stains go far deeper than the skin, permanently rewriting the architecture of our minds.
We are reminded that every single compromise we make with our conscience has a compounding cost. We do not just harm the world around us, we dismantle our own internal capacity to ever experience peace again.
As we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a different angle to ponder. We've talked extensively about the witches feeding Macbeth his own dark desires. Think about the modern architecture of our own lives. If the Weird Sisters were just feeding Macbeth what he secretly wanted to hear, accelerating his worst impulses, how often are we letting our own modern witches, the algorithms, the echo chambers, the curated feeds, serve up the exact prophecies and confirmations we crave?
That is a terrifying thought.
How often do we let those external voices validate our own hidden biases until we find ourselves justifying actions we once considered unthinkable?
A deeply unsettling parallel to consider in our current landscape.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us under the shadows of the Scotic play. Keep questioning the narratives around you, guard your conscience, and we'll see you next time.